There are some struggles people can see. A broken car. An empty refrigerator. A late rent payment. And then there are the struggles people hide so well that everyone assumes they are doing just fine. For Daniel Carter, hiding it had become a daily routine. Every morning, he woke up at 5:17. Not because his alarm was set for 5:17. Because that was usually the moment he opened his eyes and remembered the number. $87,412. Debt stood between his family and the life he had once imagined for them. Daniel was 36 years old. He lived in a small two-bedroom house outside Columbus, Ohio, with his wife, Rachel, and their two children, 9-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Noah. From the outside, they looked ordinary. A family of 4. A modest house. 2 cars. Kids going to school. Sunday dinners. Birthday pictures. But Daniel knew the truth. They were one serious emergency away from falling apart. His paycheck was the only reliable income coming into the house. Rachel had been working part-time at a daycare, but after Noah started having problems at school, she reduced her hours so she could be home more often. It was the right decision for their family. Financially, it was brutal. Every month, Daniel's paycheck disappeared almost as soon as it arrived. Mortgage. Electricity. Gas. Groceries. Car insurance. Health insurance. School expenses. Credit card payments. A personal loan. And the medical debt they had accumulated years earlier. The number Daniel hated looking at. $87,412. He didn't tell his coworkers. He didn't tell his neighbors. He didn't even tell his mother the full amount. Whenever someone asked how things were going, Daniel smiled. Can't complain. That was his favorite lie. One Tuesday morning, Daniel stood in the kitchen making peanut butter sandwiches. Emma walked into the room wearing her school backpack. Dad? Yeah. Can I have $5? Daniel stopped spreading peanut butter. $5 for what? We're having a book fair at school. Daniel looked down at the sandwich. When is it? Today. He reached into his wallet. $2. He checked his pocket. Nothing. His checking account had $31.84 in it. Payday was Friday. Daniel looked at his daughter. How about I give you $5 Friday? Emma's smile disappeared. But the book fair is today. I know. Everyone is going. Daniel swallowed. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to pull $5 from somewhere and make the problem disappear. Instead, he forced a smile. I'll make it up to you. Emma nodded. Okay. She walked away. Daniel turned toward the sink so she wouldn't see his face. For a few seconds, he just stood there. Then he heard Noah's voice. Dad? Daniel wiped his eyes quickly. Yeah, buddy. Are you sad? Daniel turned around. No. Noah looked at him carefully. Your eyes are wet. Daniel laughed. Must be the onions. There aren't any onions. Daniel smiled. You're getting too smart. Noah laughed. For a moment, everything felt normal again. But when the kids left for school, Daniel sat at the kitchen table and opened his banking app. $31. Or. He stared at it. Then he opened his debt tracker. $87,412. He locked his phone. He had spent years trying to solve the problem by working harder. But working harder was becoming impossible. Daniel worked as a warehouse supervisor. He started early. He stayed late. Whenever another employee called out, Daniel usually covered the shift. His co-workers thought he was ambitious. The truth was much simpler. He was scared. Scared that one missed paycheck would cause everything to collapse. One Friday evening, his manager, Steve, called him into the office. "Daniel, sit down." Daniel immediately became nervous. "Did I do something wrong?" Steve shook his head. "No. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about the overtime." Daniel relaxed slightly. "Okay. You've been averaging 20 extra hours a week. I can handle it. That's not what I'm asking." Steve leaned back. "You've got 2 kids, right?" "Yeah. You've been here before 6 every morning for almost 8 months." Daniel shrugged. "Just trying to help." Steve looked at him for a moment. "You look exhausted." Daniel smiled. "I'm fine." Steve laughed quietly. "That's what everybody says right before they fall asleep standing up." Daniel smiled. But he didn't tell Steve the truth. He couldn't afford to stop. That night, Daniel came home at 8:43. Rachel was sitting at the kitchen table. The house was quiet. The kids were asleep. Rachel looked at him. "You're late. Extra shipment." She nodded. Then she pushed a piece of paper across the table. Daniel looked down. It was a medical bill. $1,284. He closed his eyes. "What happened?" "Emma's asthma appointment. I thought insurance covered it." "It covered part of it." Daniel pulled out a chair. "How much do we have?" Rachel didn't answer. Daniel already knew. "Nothing." She shook her head. "We have $112 until Friday." Daniel leaned back. For several seconds neither of them spoke. Then Rachel whispered. "Daniel, I think we need to stop pretending we're okay." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I mean we're drowning." Daniel looked toward the hallway. "I know. No. I don't think you do." Rachel's voice cracked. "We keep paying one bill with another bill. We keep moving money around. We keep saying next month will be better." She wiped her eyes. "But what happens if next month isn't better?" Daniel had no answer. Rachel reached across the table. "How much do we owe?" Daniel looked away. "Daniel." He breathed out slowly. 87,000. Rachel froze. "What?" "About 87. You said 60. I thought I could fix it." Rachel stared at him. "When?" "I don't know." "How long have you known?" Daniel looked down. "A while." Rachel pulled the paper closer. "You're telling me we owe almost $90,000. Daniel nodded. She covered her face. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then Rachel said something Daniel would remember for the rest of his life. "I don't need you to fix everything." Daniel looked at her. "I need you to stop carrying it alone." That sentence broke something inside him. Not because she was angry. Because she wasn't. She was tired. And she was scared. But she was still sitting there. Still beside him. The next morning, Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He asked for help. Not from his family. Not from a bank. From a man named Marcus Reed. Marcus owned a small auto repair shop near Daniel's warehouse. Daniel had known him for 3 years. They had talked dozens of times. But Daniel had never told him about the debt. That morning, Daniel walked into the shop. Marcus looked up. "Daniel? Can I ask you something?" "Sure." Daniel hesitated. "How do you know when you've reached the point where you need to change your life?" Marcus put down his coffee. "When you realize the way you're living isn't sustainable." Daniel nodded. "That's where I am." Marcus didn't interrupt. Daniel told him everything. The debt. The overtime. The bills. The kids. The fear. When Daniel finished, Marcus leaned back. Then he asked one question. What are you good at? Daniel frowned. What? What are you actually good at? I supervise a warehouse. No. Marcus shook his head. That's your job. I'm asking what you're good at. Daniel thought. I fix problems. Marcus smiled. That's better. Daniel looked confused. You've been telling me for 3 years how your warehouse runs. You notice problems before everyone else does. So why are you only getting paid to supervise? Daniel didn't have an answer. Marcus reached into a drawer. He pulled out a business card. My cousin owns a logistics company in Dayton. Daniel looked at the card. They're looking for someone who understands warehouse operations. I don't have a college degree. They don't care. I don't have management certifications. They can train you. Daniel stared at him. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe you've been trying to escape your situation by working more hours instead of becoming more valuable. That sentence stayed with Daniel. The following Monday, Daniel applied for the job. He didn't get it. The following week, he applied for another. Rejected. Then another. Rejected. By the 6th application, Daniel started wondering if Marcus had been wrong. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, his phone rang. Hi, is this Daniel Carter? Yes. This is Laura Bennett from Bennett Logistics. We reviewed your application. Daniel sat up. Okay. We'd like to invite you for an interview. Daniel's heart started beating faster. The interview lasted 40 minutes. Laura asked about his experience. Daniel talked about reducing shipping errors. He explained how he reorganized employee schedules. He described a system he had created to track damaged inventory. Laura listened. Then she asked. Why are you looking to leave your current position? Daniel could have lied. Instead, he told the truth. I need to build a better future for my family. Laura nodded. We're not hiring someone because their life is perfect. She closed the folder. We're hiring someone who knows how to solve problems. 3 days later, Daniel received the call. The salary was nearly $18,000 higher than his current income. There was health coverage, retirement matching, and something Daniel hadn't had in years. A predictable schedule. For the first time in a long time, Daniel came home before dinner. Noah ran toward him. Dad! Daniel picked him up. You came home early. I did. Why? Daniel smiled. Because I wanted to eat dinner with you. That night, the 4 of them sat around the table. It wasn't an expensive meal. Chicken. Rice. Frozen vegetables. But nobody cared. Rachel looked at Daniel. How was your first week? Daniel smiled. Hard. She laughed. Good hard or bad hard? Good hard. Then he reached for his phone. He opened the debt tracker. The number was still enormous. $87,412. Nothing had magically disappeared. But Daniel wasn't looking at it the same way anymore. For the first time, the number didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a mountain. And mountains could be climbed. One payment at a time. One decision at a time. One sacrifice at a time. 2 years later, Daniel had paid off more than $24,000 of the debt. They still weren't rich. They still watched what they spent. They still cooked most meals at home. Daniel still checked the grocery prices. But something had changed. They were no longer surviving from Friday to Friday. They were building. One evening, Emma walked into the kitchen holding a school project. Dad, look. She had drawn a picture of their family standing in front of a house. Above it, she had written, "Our future." Daniel looked at the picture. Then he looked at his daughter. "Why did you draw this?" Emma shrugged. "Because Mom says we're working toward something." Daniel smiled. "She's right." Emma pointed at the house. "That's our future house." Daniel laughed. "Is it?" "Yep." "How big is it, everyone?" Daniel hugged her. He didn't tell her that 2 years earlier, he had been afraid they might lose the house they already had. About the $87,412. She didn't need to carry that number. To know something her father had finally learned. Your circumstances can be real without becoming your identity. Debt can be real. Failure can be real. Fear can be real. But none of those things have to be the final chapter. Daniel still had debt. He still had bills. He still had difficult months. But he had stopped asking, "How do I survive this?" And started asking, "What can I do next?" Sometimes that's where change begins. Not with a miracle. Not with a lottery ticket. Not with someone suddenly handing you a better life. Sometimes it begins with one honest conversation. One uncomfortable decision. One application. One extra skill. One person willing to say, "You don't have to carry this alone." So if you're struggling right now, remember Daniel. You don't need to solve your entire life tonight. You don't need to climb the entire mountain tomorrow. You just need to take the next step. Because $87,000 can look impossible when you're staring at the whole number. But every mountain is climbed the same way. One step. Then another. Then another. And sometimes the life you're praying for doesn't begin when your problems disappear. Sometimes. It begins when you finally decide that your problems are not going to decide who you become. And that decision can change everything.